Good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us from different time zones, good morning or good evening. And of course, for me, it's afternoon here in Singapore. And for Alicia, it's going to be good morning in her case. So, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all five P's by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And we have been interviewing leaders from around the globe, and one of the top problems they face is hiring and keeping the right talents engaged. So, if you are a CHRO, CEO, CFO, or a leader who is concerned about losing your best talent, if you feel that losing your strong bench of star employees, as Alicia calls it, carries more than financial cost, and if you need to keep high performing employees to ensure productivity and team dynamics, this interview is for you. So, before that, today I will be interviewing Alicia on employees knowing their worth. So, I would like to introduce Alicia, especially for those who haven't seen us before or watched our live session before. Alicia is unique, having fulfilled an academic career, a corporate career, freelancer, and now entrepreneur. Holding a PhD in chemistry, Alicia enjoyed a successful scientific corporate career in the pharmaceutical industry. Later, as a senior partner to the chief executive officer in a Fortune 500 company. She successfully led more than 20 team transformations while gaining intense training and coaching from McKinsey. Alicia excelled at setting strategy, change management, and operational excellence, and as an internal certified coach. Today, Alicia is an accredited ICF ACC coach. She combines her expertise, experience, skills, and a lifetime of learning to coach and mentor a global clientele to proactively and holistically manage their careers, supporting them to be more, lead more, and live more. So without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Alicia. Hi, Alicia.
Hi,
Ni-
Marilyn. Thank
Nice to
you
see
so
you
much. Thank you so much. You always introduce me with this lovely introduction. It's my
again.
pleasure to be here and to really, this topic we're going to talk about impacts everyone, not only the employees, but the senior management, all the way up to the CEOs.
Yes, and it's very interesting. I actually remember like one of the training I've attended from our mentor from the US, who's an NLP master. I'm sure you've attended her program as well, Michelle Masters.
Yes.
And it's interesting to know because we're discussing about the employees' worth, or although it's like a different topic altogether, I would say. But then I was just like, when we talk about worth, it's interesting that human are the only like species, I guess, who would question their worth, right? So yeah, let's jump in on like what do you really mean by our worth, right?
As you clearly mentioned, we tend to think really worth in terms of money, the value of something, but we somehow go back to money when we hear the word worth.
Mm-hmm.
And the topic today is really about your professional worth.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's everything you have accumulated over your lifetime, not necessarily at university, even at primary school, secondary school. It's all your skills, all your expertise, all your experience. And that's not necessarily in the career context, it's also voluntary projects, things you've experienced in life. And all of this together really comes together to make it your professional worth.
Mm-hmm.
And what we tend to do is we tend to limit our worth to what we put on our CVs, our
Mm-hmm.
resumes, as it's called in some countries. So it's important the resume, the CV is a summary, but you are worth so much more than that. The value you can create in an organization is much more than the benefits, the remuneration that you can get, the salary that you can get. So it's important for any level, as I said, to
Mm-hmm.
know what they're worth. And then we talk about skills, and people tend to think about qualifications, but think of your network. The expression, your network is your net worth. That's part of your worth. If you are applying for a job, or even if you're within the company, moving with an internal move, then your network is powerful, especially if you are in sales or collaboration type jobs. So think about that, your overall worth as an employee in the professional context, of course.
Yes, thank you for sharing that with us. And I really love when you mentioned about, having to put in, I mean, in the worth part of on a professional context about, the network that you have.
Mhm.
Because I think that's something that, a lot of companies or leaders do miss out on, because sometimes this person, even if it's not, he or she is not, providing that, in terms of skills and or in terms of like the high potential and all, but then sometimes the worth of that person being able to stick the team together, be able to as well as bring together people or encourage other people or the high potentials to be to do more, right? As well, is not really something that you can see in the resume easily. And I'm glad that you mentioned that in the
Yeah.
worth, right? So why do most professionals underestimate their worth from your from your experience?
Well, it's what I deal with every day with my clients, because whether they are looking for a new job, whether they are in career transition, whether they are in career growth type aspirations,
Mm-hmm,
everyone underestimates what they are worth.
mm-hmm,
And that is inherent with the human condition. We are naturally, many of us are naturally humble, modest. And if we start talking about ourselves, like the way you introduced me, for example, I'm like, oh my God, it's like you almost feel like you are bragging when you start talking about yourself.
mm-hmm,
And that's one thing where, first of all, many people are not, at least from my clients, what I see is that they're not clear about their worth. And
mm-hmm,
because they're not clear, they are not confident to speak about it. So the first step is really that clarity. And then you'll be able to naturally feel more confident about what you're saying.
mm-hmm,
That's one aspect. The second aspect, as we all know, and this happens in any gender, any age, any part of the world, any profession, imposter syndrome.
mm-hmm,
And this is more rampant than we can imagine.
mm-hmm,
And what happens with imposter syndrome is some people link it to perfection, but there's another aspect where we are afraid to say we can do something
mm-hmm.
because we're afraid that we may not be able to deliver. And that comes with expectations. You don't want to disappoint your department, your company, what your boss might say if you take on this challenge and you cannot really fulfill. Of course, you would get support if it's a company that supports their employees, but at the same time, we naturally go into that imposter syndrome. So that's why I believe that I'm looking because I think I had another point, but those are the two main ones. And that's why we tend to underestimate our worth. And that's why it's so important that you work with someone or you take stock and take the time to take stock of your worth from a professional perspective. Again, your financial worth is another story. There, I'm not an expert.
Thank you for sharing with us. And I like what you said about, a lot of times we think that when we introduce ourselves, or, when we talk about ourselves, it's like, it feels like we're bragging, right? I mean, I believe, especially here in the Asian context, right? That's like people are so, afraid to say, or to, like what you've said as well, that, they might be, overcommitting, if they say something about their, results, their worth, and about themselves. So I think it's quite, natural for most humans, especially, I would say, in here in Asia. But then gone are the days that, you're not supposed to know, or you underestimate your worth, like I in the question that we have, right? Because nowadays, I mean, who would sell you, or who how would people know you if you don't tell about it, right?
Yeah, and that's the importance of what we call today personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be discussed at our masterclass because that's part of um, the workshops we'll be offering, where it's not so much personal branding because that
Mm-hmm.
gets into your persona as such, but I like to call it career branding.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your career brand? And if you are able to talk about yourself, which is, of course, all credible and genuine, backed up by
Mm-hmm.
your certificates, by your experience, if you're able to talk about that, then it's so amazing, and it doesn't come across as bragging like you and I are doing now.
Exactly. And that leads me actually to the next question on what makes knowing your worth so important, right?
I think we've been touching on this
A few.
quite a few times over
Mm-hmm.
the last two interviews and earlier today. Um, it's again clarity and confidence. If you're clear on what you are about, your
Mm-hmm.
profile, your personality, your skills, your strengths, your values, your experience, your achievements, if you have a clear picture of that, guess what it's going to bring to you? It's going to bring you a huge confidence.
Yes.
And you may not be able to bust the imposter syndrome alone, because that's why we have so many coaches today to support people to accelerate from
Yes.
that state of imposter syndrome. We
Mm-hmm.
don't need coaches. We can do it for by ourselves. But what the coach does, it helps you to accelerate. Or what can take you 10 years, you can do in 2 or 3 months. So that's the beauty of having a coach. And when you have that confidence, and here in the context of our masterclass, we're talking about keeping your strong bench, you know, your star employees, you don't necessarily want them to walk out the door and go
Mm-hmm.
to the company up the street. You really want to keep them because you have invested, the company has invested so much in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when your star employees realize their worth and they are over this imposter syndrome, you would see hands going up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
You would see new initiatives they would start talking about. People would be more confident to bring up projects. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of thinking of problems, they would convert their problems into projects. And the whole cycle would start whereby these star employees and others who know themselves well would start contributing more. And of course, the upper management would notice that and they would give them opportunities in terms of leading new projects, leading new collaborative efforts. And this is where it's so important and sometimes counterintuitive for companies to invest in employees to help them to identify their worth through career coaching. And that's what we are introducing, my company. We are introducing this concept as an add on strategy to employee engagement and retention. So that's how the cycle works as such.
Yes, yes, and this is somehow part of the engagement and how you can actually keep your people by helping them to have this clarity as well and bring in confidence to them. And so of course there are benefits as well for the company, like what you've mentioned. It helps in the retention strategy, right, that some companies might be missing out as well. So
Mhm.
how does knowing your worth support the growth of the a department or of an organization, having said that?
Yeah. It's so easy today to lose your star employees because, of course, there are many headhunters out there who just want to grab the ones that you have invested so much in. And even if they're loyal, sometimes it becomes so tempting to
Mhm,
leave and to venture into greener pastures, as I
mhm,
say. So it's important for the senior management to, first of all, really identify who those employees are. And it's not only by picking the loud ones or the ones who speak up, it's
mhm,
really looking at their worth. And what I mean here by worth is, are they creating more value than the benefits they are getting?
mhm,
The salary is nothing compared to the value they create in the organization. And if you are able to identify those individuals, or maybe sometimes it's a whole team that is working so well that they become a star team, you want to be able to protect them. Protect them in the sense that you want to give them opportunities
mhm,
where they can grow further in the organization. And
mhm,
in so doing, they bring more value to the organization.
mhm,
And with the current war on talent, especially when people can work virtually from anywhere,
mhm,
it's important for, again, the senior management to think beyond the current strategies that they are using. Because we tend to ask, how can we keep our employees engaged?
mhm.
And then you get all the off the shelf solutions. But if
Yes.
you ask, why should we retain our employees? If you could ask that question, then you would realize that it goes a lot deeper. And this is where we will be. I hope at the masterclass we would have some time to get into a nice Q&A so that I can address those questions for the attendees. I hope
Thank
I wrapped up that for you, Marilyn.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, being able to demonstrate that as an employee, like what you've mentioned, and for management also to notice the value of their employees, then that way they can mutually see how they can actually, keep each other, like to keep the employees engaged, and of course for organizations to having been able to see that value from their employees, then they know whom to keep and how to keep that person, right, with that conversation that they can have, and also have that opportunity like what you've shared on involving those employees to take on challenges, projects, and all those stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I actually have I think I'd like to thank our audience here. Jonathan actually shared is engaging with us, although I'm not so sure how related it is to our current conversation, because our conversation for today is more about employees knowing your worth. But I think the question from Jonathan here is a situation where he's not yet connected with a company, and I believe this is kind of common as well, right? And we
Mm.
talked about this probably in our first session, how, and even in the second session, about employee engagement, that it starts even before you hire the person, right? So I'm not sure if you'd like to make a comment on this, John.
Yeah.
Did you
So
get to read the
Yes,
comment.
I've been reading it while you speak, and I hear you. So indeed, the employee engagement is not when you enter into the organization; it starts even before, and HR knows this, and they do try their best. I mean, hiring someone for a multinational company, especially in today's world, as we said, virtual. There's so many applicants from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and HR is responsible for finding the right fit for that company, for that job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy for them because imagine if they were to hire the wrong person, there's no wrong person, but hire the wrong fit, shall I say, then they have to start the process all over again. And that costs money. So sometimes, especially at the last phase, it's not only Jonathan in that selection. There might
Mm-hmm.
be two or three other people. And the reason why they might be taking so long is, and I've hired a lot of people into my teams when I was in multinational. And it's not only HR, it's the hiring manager also that needs to reflect. Sometimes people reflect in different ways. They take time to sleep on it, or they might be researching different things, and something is happening, a process is taking place. So 1 week is not too long, Jonathan, but if it goes on for more than 2 weeks, I'm sure you have the contact of the person who interviewed you or the HR manager, and feel free to reach out to them, with some kind words, asking them, when can you expect a response? You're excited about the job, and make it genuine, lively, and encouraging for both parties.
Thank you for sharing your insights and your experience in terms of hiring. And I hope, Jonathan, that helps you. Wait one more week and then call them.
If you cannot wait, you can do it now. But yeah, a bit of patience helps. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for answering that question for Jonathan, Alicia. Is there like any additional message that you'd like to share before we end this interview? I mean, wow, we're so fast. It's already
Already half an hour.
5:30.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think it's what this add-on strategy that we're bringing. It's where the company would invest in their star employees to help
Mhm,
them to really define their worth, but also their aspirations. And we do that with all other professional trainings, like we
mhm,
spoke about last week,
mhm,
where the company invests in the professional development
mhm,
of the person. And that person can still leave, but more than likely the person stays. So
mhm,
it's a bit of a trade off. It's not a bribe, it's a trade off where the company grows, the person is growing. So as long as there's possibility for growth,
mhm,
possibility for challenges, people will stay. If they become stagnant, again, it's intrinsic in us to have ambition, to grow, to want to do more,
mhm,
be more, lead more, live more, as
mhm.
you and I say, and that's my tagline for my company.
Right.
So it's important that you give them opportunities, and I think you mentioned it. Loyalty is a two-way street.
Mhm,
You can't buy it. It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of mutual collaboration.
mhm,
And if you think of your employees as a business partner, they are there to support you as a company, regardless of the size of the company. Sometimes in multinationals, we forget that this entity is so huge, worldwide, thousands and thousands of people, and you are just there with your team, and we forget that. So think about two-way loyalty. And my question would be: would you prefer to invest in your star employees, or would you prefer to watch them walk away?
mhm,
So that's That's something that every senior management team should be thinking about. And they usually do it too late.
Mm-hmm.
Succession planning is done well in many companies, but in many companies, it's just a matter of framing people in boxes. And I'm sure everyone means well. I'm not here to criticize, but think a bit further than why you want the people there. And you would find out that you want to be able to identify what they can contribute to your company for mutual growth and success.
Thank you. I love what you've shared, that it's which I've summarized also earlier, like, it's a two-way street. Loyalty cannot be bought, or but trust, right? And appreciation, and again, like, both partners, or both employee and uh, organizations, or leaders must have this, work on this loyalty and trust part, right? And of course, it's important that they have to invest in their star employees, rather than, watch them walk away, like you've mentioned. I mean, I normally hear this. It's not that I ridicule anyone, but then I always hear this, like, how, what if, our employee would leave after, taking this training, or but the question is, what if you keep them and you don't train them? I think that's even worse, right?
Yeah, and last week we spoke about all the return on investment,
Hmm.
because to replace those star employees is not only the cost and the time, but
Hmm.
it's also the time it takes them to reach that level of
Hmm.
productivity and
Right.
expertise that the
Hmm.
star employee had. And that kind of, there's the break even point can
Right.
go for a long time. So it's a lot of, and what we mean by break even there is when the value they create is higher than the salary or benefits they get.
Right, right. Thank you so much for another insightful discussion with you, Alicia. And I look forward to our next and last session, next Tuesday at around 4:35 in the afternoon, on another topic, on career coaching. What's our topic next week, by the way? Why I left my job. Did I get that? Did I remember that
I
right?
think it's a twister.
Why I left my job. So we started with, I love my job, and now, what we're gonna discuss is why I left my job. It's an interesting topic to discuss. And of course, the purpose why we're having this mini, or regular interview with Alicia, is because we're upcoming with a master class this June 23. You're seeing that flashing down. Um, 23 of June. That's going to be at 4 p.m. on, how you can actually, keep your employees, or how you can, how we can help you in terms of, retention, right? Employee retention. So I'm just gonna flash again in a bigger way the website where they can actually register. So in this masterclass, Alicia will share what are the problems brought about by losing your critical employees. Sometimes, having this, she made mention that as well in this interview, or in the past interview as well, that, off the shelf strategies to engage and retain your employees are not effective, and the cost, of course, and time investment of hiring, onboarding, training in is costing you more than you think, right? So,
One little correction, Marilyn. It's not
oh,
that they are not. It's not that the off the shelf are not effective. It's
mhm.
that they are not covering everything that needs to be
Mm,
covered.
okay, okay, for correcting me. Yeah. So we look forward to seeing you on our upcoming masterclass. on the 23rd of June. That's Wednesday at 4 p.m. So um, we have a few more seats left. So feel free to register as soon as you can and see you there. Thank you so much, Alicia, and looking forward to add values through that masterclass with you soon. Yes, and Jonathan says thank you. Thank you for engaging with us as well, Jonathan. And yeah, look, do sign up in our upcoming program, and looking forward to see especially CHROs, CEOs, and CFOs, as well as leaders who would like to retain their star employees. Thank you, everyone, and bye
Thank you,
for now.
Marilyn.